Hello, welcome to another wonderful episode, Table Talk with my friends, worship conversations with my friends. If you haven't checked out the previous episodes, please go ahead and check out the other episodes. They're amazing. My heart is to, again, for people who are listening to this episode, my heart is to create and inspiring content and inspiring things so that you connect better with God and just to fuel the worship movement right now in whatever ways I can do. And one of the things is this Table Talk series. So hopefully you guys check out and leave a comment or tell us what did you like about it. And today I have a privilege of having my wonderful friend Jersey. I'm not gonna butcher your last name. Um, so, Jersey is an amazing. You're very talented. You are an artist. You draw and paint, and you are phenomenal speaker. From what I've heard so far, you have the skill and you love the word. You were a church girl and you played in worship band and you were a bass player and you play other instruments too. Um, and you just love Jesus and you love to paint and art. Um, so for somebody who doesn't know you, please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jersey Olszewski. That's why he didn't attempt the last name. It's a rough one, but I'm proud of it. I grew up going to church. Actually, I grew up in a very sports-centered family, which I feel like now that I'm getting to know the creatives, most of them actually grew up in like musical families. So sometimes it's a little interesting, it's a little different. But my dad coaches football. My whole family is uber competitive. I'm very competitive, as anyone that meets me will know. And I love sports. Grew up kind of playing different sports. I actually was starting to get into volleyball pretty seriously when I found out like I was having a lot of knee pain and I just had trouble keeping up. And I found out that I had a kind of a rare like bone disease in my knee. And so one day I was at school and then I got called out of school, went to the doctor, they told me. I came back 30 minutes later with a full leg brace. No. And I couldn't put any weight on my leg for 3 months. Yeah, and so that kind of shifted the path. Like in the Lord's goodness, I probably would have gone more into sports. But that's kind of what got me interested in music and art. That's when I started playing violin in school. And I would just kind of doodle in class mostly. And then during COVID is when I really encountered the Lord for the first time. And it was really beautiful. And that was the moment for me that I can just remember. I was in my room and for the first time I really felt the presence of the Lord. And my response was worship. Like I didn't even, not even like my brain wasn't processing, just my body knew like I needed to be on my face before the Lord. And that shifted everything in my life then, because worship was more than just something I did. Worship was a part of who I was. And so in the next couple of months, I learned bass, I learned acoustic guitar, electric guitar, piano, basically anything I could get my hands on. And I started painting. And painting is actually how I learned how to hear the voice of the Lord, because I would ask him what to paint and I would see something in my mind. And as I would paint, he would tell me what it meant. And so, yeah, it was just a really beautiful time. And then got involved with my worship team back home, had amazing leaders that really poured into me. The Lord just gave me such incredible opportunities. So I grew a lot that way. I mean, I was probably at church like 4 to 5 days a week sometimes, either for a worship service or a worship practice. And it was so beautiful. And then came out here after high school, came to BSSM and was on worship teams for first year, played bass, and also started worship painting, a part of like the school and eventually the church, and getting to just paint live during worship sets and just have painting as a form of worship in a congregational like standpoint, which is new and interesting and fun. And so, yeah, that's me. That's kind of where I am here today.
Yeah, that is. I'm very curious. Like how. So this is what I ask all of my guests. This one question is, uh, I know you shared a little bit about your worship journey of playing in teams and all of that. So, um, what has been worship to you in the past, and what has been worship, how it translated over the years right now? Um, and I know you do a lot of art, which a lot of people don't know. Like, there's so many. I think now it's becoming a popular thing. Like, churches everywhere are incorporating artists who draw and paint on stage at their churches to. It's another expression of worship, and um, yeah, just tell us if you can tell us what's your worship journey like, and and tell us a little bit about your art journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, my worship journey started behind closed doors in my room, and I think that's really where it should always start and come from. Um, and it would look probably, I mean, it would look different. Sometimes it was picking up an instrument and playing just a tune. Sometimes it would be singing a little song. Sometimes it would be picking up, something and painting or drawing. And then as, time went on, and I got involved with my church, I really just loved the aspect of serving through worship and through my giftings. And so that's why I'm like anywhere you need. That's also one of the reasons why I learned bass is there wasn't anyone on the youth group team that played bass. So I'm like, I'm in. Like, I'll just, tell me what to do and I'll figure it out. And so yeah, I just went from there and just with a hunger of I want to worship the Lord and I want to serve His church. And so yeah, that's a lot of then that focus was music, because that's what my church back home wanted and had a spot to fill for. But yeah, over the years it's really progressed. I think especially this past year and a half, I've been stepping more into art as worship, because now there's more of a space for me to do that. And it's been a beautiful time of, it's equally enjoying and fulfilling to be a creative and express creatively, as much as it fulfills the part of me that desires to worship the Lord. And also I get this like growing and maturing part of my life where I'm constantly learning and asking questions of how can I do better? How can I depict this differently? And so it's like there's this journey that I love learning, and I love the journey of, how can I do this in a new way? And how can I communicate this idea or this picture in a way that people can understand it, even if it doesn't necessarily look like what stereotypical would, like peace doesn't have to look like a dove with olive branches. Peace can look like the color blue with water or something like that. So yeah, it's been a really fun journey of visually communicating and refining my craft and finding the Lord in that. So
That's so good. I'm gonna ask this question, and for people who don't know, Jersey is part of the arts department at our local church here in Redding, California, and she does art on stage while worship is happening. And I'm very curious about how the process. Like we had like a worship night for the school students here like a couple of weeks ago, and Jersey was painting. You painted on a wooden board, correct? So talk to us about a little bit of your process. Like you painted like in jar.
Yeah, I painted the Gifts of the Magi that night.
Okay. Talk to us about a little bit about what was the inspiration. How did you paint that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for that particular night, I mean, there's a lot of things that go through my mind, but as I'm preparing, when I know I'm going to be worshiping and painting for a service, I think about that service and kind of the context of it. So for the context of this service, it was a One King event, which is basically all 3 years of BSSM school come together. And then that night in particular, they also had BSSM Espanol and another group. So like an online, I think, community as well. So there was a ton of people all over the world, all different ages, all different backgrounds. And the first thing is, even the name of the service is One King. So I knew I wanted to keep the focus on Jesus. There are times when I'll feel like the Lord wants me to focus on an aspect where He's ministering to His people. But for this event, like I want to keep Him the sole focus. But also, the other thing that I was feeling for this night was that there's going to be a unity in the room, specifically a unity that was going to come through hunger. So that was kind of the phrase I was keeping in mind. So then I go to the Lord like, okay, Lord, how can I show this? And I kept coming back to the story of the three wise men, because you think of their story, and they travel for hundreds of miles to just because of a star. And I love this because for me, stars represent promises, because you think of Abraham, like it represented the promises. So it's like they traveled hundreds of miles to meet someone based on a promise. Right. And when they finally did, they came with gifts, they came expectant, and they laid it down. And so what I was trying to capture is, how far are you willing to go? How much are you willing to sacrifice when you're face to face with the King of Kings? Wow. And what was beautiful is then, because there are times, being very honest, I'm like, okay, Lord, like this is what I felt. This is what I'm going to go with. This is what I feel you on. But I'm not sure that this is going to go with what is happening in the room in the moment, because I'm just acting on faith that I'm hearing the Lord. And so I just went with it. And what was so cool is throughout the night, I just had these little like moments of confirmation where the Lord was affirming like this was the right piece to paint this night. And so even someone in debrief talked about like that they felt like there was going to be a unity. And then as soon as I finished painting at the end of the night, one of the speakers went up and gave a whole thing on hunger and was like releasing a gift of hunger. And so, yeah, it was just this beautiful time of like, wow, what I painted actually got released. And I think that happens so many times, even in worship as a whole. I think worship a lot of times is what we make it. And there's even a quote by Pablo Picasso that says, art is not merely for decorating apartments, it's an instrument of war. Wow. And what's amazing about that is there's actually a painting that Pablo Picasso did called the Guernica, which is very well known, and it's like an anti-war painting. And the UN put up, I think it's like a copy of the painting, I don't think it was the original, in their offices in New York in like around World War II. But in 2003, they were having meetings discussing like going to war with Iraq, and they actually had to cover up the painting because what it represented was too powerful, and it felt like it wasn't right to have it showing as they were discussing war.
That is so good.
And so I think what we release in worship is often much more than we realize, but when we realize what we release, then we release what we realize. And so I love this, seeing this, like I've seen it so many times in paintings I've done, in worship sets, where we as a group, as a team, will feel something, and as we act on that, then we realize other people in the spirit are receiving those things. And so, yeah, I just love the power of worship and how the Lord just will put things on our heart and minister to his people in such a beautiful way.
Wow. I'm just blown away by just the thought of like imagining your artwork or your piece of creation is traveling to places, even to like in this context you're talking about war and they're trying to cover up, but like, let's say if there is a war, and then if we're sending art as a symbol of peace and encouragement, that would just like shift places. And it's, anyways, I'm just locked on that thought right now.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. That is so good. I really I really love the idea. And also, what would you jumping into our next question, I really loved your passion on this subject, and I really want you maybe like somebody who loves to do art, or they have not explored this area, what would you say to those people, that how can they communicate worship through their art or painting? It's not just have to be on a church setting, but even with their personal time. They're like young people who loves to paint, or you could be older and you love to do art as a hobby, and how can they translate that into worship? And what would you say about give some advice about that, I guess?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would just encourage everyone to even just try to, even if you don't think you're a great artist,
Mm-hmm.
just to get some crayons, get some paper, get whatever you have around you and sit down with the Lord, because something that I love so much about art, especially when you're doing it with the Lord in the context of like worship or even just spending time like intimately with Jesus, is you can have an encounter with God, and if you draw it out, then you get like this snapshot in the spirit that you get to keep forever. So it's almost like taking a photograph into like an encounter you have with Jesus. So I love that aspect that you can think on it and remember it forever and keep it and come back to it and continue to receive. But practically, it can just start. I think it's great to start with childlikeness and with fun, and to remove all expectation of what it has to look like, what it has to be like, and really just start in a place of surrender, because that's where all worship should begin, is as a heart posture of sacrifice and surrender and yieldedness to the Lord. And the same is with the creative process. Right. Even as creatives talk about being creative, a lot of times they'll word it in like, when inspiration hits, I have to act quickly, or I have to follow the inspiration. And the same is with the Lord. But when you come with that mindset of, you know, I'm not here for the finished product, I'm here for the journey. And every mark, every brushstroke becomes part of that and part of a story. But yeah, I think just starting simply with, even in the beginning of Jeremiah, it talks about the Lord encountering Jeremiah, and he asks him, what do you see? And he shows him a picture. And then he begins to tell him. And I think that's a beautiful example of just sitting. Our minds are like blank canvases for the Lord. Our imagination with a sanctified mind is unto the Lord. And so when we close our eyes and we just ask the Lord to reveal something, and for some people too, like, you might receive easier through just thoughts you might not see as vividly, but even just like a thought of a leaf, then I'm going to draw this leaf, and continually asking, and like, oh, maybe add different aspects. But even through colors, like, the Lord will speak to you through everything. If you know, if it's red, maybe there's an aspect of his grace or his love that he wants to pour out. And if it's blue, maybe it's like the endless, you know, the purity, the peace. Like, there's just so many things. And the Lord will speak to you in a way that you understand. So I think that's the beautiful part, is just going all in and not feeling like it has to be something incredible or has to look like something else, but actually it can just be you and Jesus. And as you go about that, and as you continue to do that, then you just get to try new things, and it just becomes this adventure with the Lord of how to express worship to him in a new way, and also just to grow closer to him.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Wow, that's so good. I love how you mentioned, like, it can be really simple, of like just sitting with the Lord and praying and getting a picture, and if it's like a simple as a leaf, you can just paint the leaf. And also, I just want to bring some, for people who don't know, when we say encounter and all of that, it's basically God. We believe God speaks through imagination. God definitely speaks through imagination, and there's so many ways God can speak. And one of the ways is imagination. When you imagine something, and you pray about it, and you get a picture, and that's what Jersey was telling us about. That's one way you can worship the Lord with. That is so cool. I love how you shared. It can be as simple as that. Jumping into our next question, I really want to know. I think this is what I ask most of my guests. Again, another same question, but I would like to know, like, what's your creative process look like? Like, are you a structure girl, or like you do spontaneous things? What does it look like? Do you have, like, I don't know, it can be any area, but we were talking about art. If with art, what's your creative process look like? Do you get some images, get some inspiration, and do rough sketches, or like tell us about your creative process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. It's always changing. It's always different. I'm someone that loves structure actually, but I never like to stick to it. So I'm always trying to do new things. Like I can never do the same thing twice. I'm always, just pushing for what's next. But even in the creative process, like I can't think of the creative process without the Lord in it. And I think there's actually part of the creative process where it's like part of me leaves this like plane of existence or this, area, and it's like I go into the heart of God, the creator. And from there, it becomes more than I'm just going to make something pretty or make something cool, but it's actually I'm partnering with the Lord to release something new into the earth. And so whether that's, something small, like just a little sketch, or if it's a song, or if it's a great, like grand painting, it's all things that are being released onto the earth. And so, yeah, even like I mentioned earlier, there's also just a level of yieldedness and surrender where it's not always going to look the same because I'm just following the Lord. And I'm also, just pushing for the new things and what the Lord is on. But yeah, I love trying different textures. I love getting inspiration from other artists, like other artists in the past, or like different bands or musicians. All things like that, like just drawing from many different things, but ultimately just bringing it back to the Lord. And so, yeah.
Sweet. I love it. We're almost at the end. I really want to know, what's been something inspiring lately to you? What is like a God thought, or what is that is like you're just refreshing to you, a song, or it can be an artist, or anything. It could be anything, but what's your current obsessions, I would say?
I would just have to say like going outside and nature right now, because it's like the peak of fall.
Oh my God.
Hallelujah, bless the Lord.
Actually, to be honest, the place we're living in Northern California usually is not. Well, we had a lot of fires like past couple years, and like a lot of the trees are dead, and now finally they're coming alive, and now we're actually seeing, and there's like good amount past year. I mean, last year there was like a lot of snow and rain, and I think slowly everything is healing, and I hope it stays that way. It's really beautiful right now in Northern California with the fall colors.
Yeah, and fall is like my favorite. I love everything about it. I love the smell, the colors, the sight, the sounds. And so even just the other day I was walking around, and like the sun was like golden through the trees, and I'm like, I could stay in this moment forever. And even, regardless, I'm one that I love being in nature because I can just feel like the Lord so much. And you even think like all creation cries like he's worthy and reflects the creator. And so if you think about that, like there's actually a whole realm and a whole like language of creation that worships the Lord. And so if we focus and look at, like, we can actually hear it sometimes in some ways. And I'm also like, I like science, and so like even like how leaves grow, I'm like, oh, that reflects the Lord. And so I get so much inspiration just from being outside in nature. And even there's a verse I wanted to share, that in Psalms 8:3 it says, look at the splendor of your skies, your creative genius glowing in the heavens. When I gaze at your moon and stars, mounted like jewels in their settings, I know you are the fascinating artist who fashions it all. That's in the Passion Translation. But just things like that where I'm like, wow, I can see it. I think anyone that when you just look at something beautiful in nature, like you're just out of, like, there's no words to describe, and it's like, you're the best artist there ever was or will be. And I'm just so happy to receive and be inspired by what you've done. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I like to get inspiration from a lot, but number one right now is just got to be when I go outside and just, I love it.
It's really beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Those are some of the golden nuggets, I would say, like you shared. and I hope listeners who are listening or looking at this on YouTube, Jersey has an art page, jersey.art. jersey.art. Follow her. Give her some love. You can buy her artwork as well. I don't know if you still have your store up, but I don't know.
I can figure it out.
Eventually, we'll get there.
Yeah, I'll get there.
But
yeah, we'll figure something out.
but sure, love, support her, and I'm just so privileged that we had this conversation, and it's really beautiful. And for somebody who's watching who wants to do art and worship through art, just start small. Start in your bedroom, pray, and like you can listen to music. There is so much great music right now, guys. The worship music industry is blowing up. Like every Friday, you see all these singles. But, anyways, bless you guys. Any final thoughts, Jersey?
Oh man, Jesus loves you. He's creative, and you should be creative too. Everyone's creative. Everyone's a worshiper. So if you haven't tapped into that yet, you should give it a try. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. All right. Blessings and have a great day.
Have a great day.